Hello everybody, my name is Dave Haddock. I am the lead writer over here at Cloud Imperium Games, and this is another episode of Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy, where we take one of the many systems in the Star Citizen universe and give you not only an overview of the system and its background, but some insight into the process and the choices that were made during its creation. So today, the spotlight's going to be cast on a pretty big one. We're going to talk about the Orion system, which is historically known as the site of first contact with the uber-friendly Vanduul. So let's jump right in and open up our trusty star map. We're on Earth. So, all right. So, as you can see, where are we going? We are going to Orion, which is over here on sort of the western side-ish. Now, some of you may be wondering, why is the system blurred and classified when I can see planets and stars and, obviously select things and read information and stuff like that? And that would be an excellent question. The answer to it is that basically the classified status prevents new and current information about the system from being displayed to the public in the fiction of the universe. So for the named sort of Vanduul systems, it's important to remember that basically, these were part of the UEE for hundreds of years before they were invaded. So there's kind of a wealth of knowledge that the people already know about the planets and stuff like that because they lived there for a while. So, but because we have Sherry, Guardian of the Galaxy, on our side, we're going to actually disable some of the things so it's a little easier to see. So hold on one second. And pazam! So now it's all gone. As you can see here, basically there are okay, so we'll kick started off here with just some of the backstory for it. So Orion was first discovered in 2650 and was originally basically kind of planned to be used as sort of basically a sort of a resource hub. Of the 4 planets that are here, basically only one of them, Armitage, right here, is habitable. So the sort of idea was that the vast plains of it were basically, it was going to be kind of used as like an agricultural, sort of like a food world, until a government initiative called Project Farstar, sort of, that was trying to promote colonization and particularly like distant colonization, just as sort of a look how awesome we are type thing. Decided to put a bunch of money into developing the world, so it basically became like sort of a real breadbasket, which was super cool until 2681, until when the Dell Township was wiped out overnight. So a small town got hit, and authorities basically had no idea what was going on. It was a sudden, obviously brutal attack that left everybody dead, except for one person who was unaccounted for. And it wasn't until they managed to find some security footage that revealed who the attackers were, and that's when they sort of figured out who or what they were dealing with. But unfortunately, without any real sense of where the Vanduul came from, the military kind of came into the system, secured it, but we're just sort of standing around like, they're obviously gone, so they didn't really have much to do. So basically, it wasn't until like almost a month after the attack on Armitage that the clan that had attacked before came back again, and the UEE and the Vanduul had their first kind of stand-up fight. And fortunately for us, however, it was a new and really, really small clan, so the UEE was actually able to destroy them. And after that, Orion was pretty quiet for a while, like so much so that it wasn't for about 5 years until the next clan showed up. And although it was a bigger clan, the military was still able to sort of fend them off. But we didn't kill them all, but on the plus side, we figured out where the jump point was. And on the downside, we sort of made our presence more known to them. At the time, obviously, they didn't know that the sort of clan structure basically was, the Vanduul were sort of not set up as like a kind of a traditional culture of civilization with like a central government and stuff like that. All these clans are sort of independent. So the idea was that basically when those first 2 clans hit, we weren't sort of known to the Vanduul by and large because they don't really talk to each other. Clans can actually be at war with each other and stuff like that. So it wasn't until the second clan went back into the jump point that they started to, the more and more Vanduul started to realize that there were humans here, which was kind of bad for us. So basically, for the next few decades, attacks were started to happen sporadically and stuff like that, kind of hit and run type stuff, to the point where the messers actually started to believe that the Vandal were basically like a disorganized annoyance, not a real threat. And that lasted until about 2712, when the system was invaded by a kingship, which I'm sure you've seen some of the stuff that we've been putting out. Kingships are sort of the big, massive chief capital ship and sort of the flagship of larger clans and stuff like that, and they are mean. And so basically it just devastated the front line. They were not expecting something of that size and destructive capability. And it was that battle that basically just broke the UEE, and they just dropped and ran. And since then, so 235 years, the Orion system has basically remained under Vandal control. And just to throw it out here, because it's something I really like, the fourth planet over here is a gas giant nicknamed Abyss, which is one of my favorite names. And aside from that, it was actually inspired by a National Geographic article that had come out about a Jupiter-sized gas giant that the Kepler telescope or satellite discovered, called TRES-2b. And basically an astronomer from Harvard Smithsonian said, quote, "If we could see it up close, it would look like a near black ball of gas with a slight glowing red tinge to it," which just sounds awesome, particularly for a system like this. So hence the name Abyss, this sort of black, almost void-like gas giant perched on the edge of the system was a super fun kind of detail to throw into an already kind of ominous and intimidating system. So aside from those two planets, Armitage over here, which is Orion 3, and Abyss over here on the edge, you have Orion 1, which is just a small kind of planet that's been charred by the red dwarf at the center, and then Orion 2, which I believe is a smog planet. Yeah, smog. So that's pretty much it. But okay, so to jump from sort of the in-fiction, lore background to it to some more meta background stuff, Orion actually was one of the earliest systems actually we had in the game. It was first mentioned in the 2681 time capsule, which was the Vandal reveal, and we released the first system unlock for it at 3.5 million, and reviewing it for the section revealed that we actually need to revise that right up to bring it into the current lore, which I need to make a note to do. So needless to say, it's been around for a really long time. Sort of the appeal for this system, for me at least, was having a system that was sort of this war-torn, shattered remnant of human civilization, and that obviously was no more apparent than in the, I don't know if we can, we don't see it. Oh, that's right, because it's classified. In Port Conrad, which is the sort of prime landing zone on Armitage. And part of the plan, just to give some background knowledge, when coming up with these landing zones, particularly in the days when we were coming up with this one, because at the time, the Star Citizen universe was considerably smaller. It was actually, I think it was 40 some odd systems as opposed to the current 100 or so. But with all of them, you want to make sure that each one has a very distinct atmosphere and character to make it stand out. So there's something kind of unique and interesting and like a flavor to it that you can't quite get anywhere else. And it's also one of those things that you have to look at it from multiple perspectives too. So it's not only like what makes it visually distinctive, but what types of stories will you experience there? Missions, what type of characters you'll interact with. Like these are the types of things that can help give it that little bit of flavor to make it feel like it's sort of its own place. And so already from the jump, basically, like Port Conrad was going to be a very different type place, particularly the other ones that we had already put together. And because it had that sort of post-apocalyptic feel to it. Because the idea was that basically when the UEE abandoned the system, and remembering, of course, that this was during the Messer era, so people weren't really high on their list of priorities. Basically, when the military abandoned the system, they just ditched a bunch of the civilians when they ran. So basically there were people that were and still are living here despite the presence of Vandal. And I always kind of saw it as like sort of a weird bunch of like ragtag outsiders and lunatics and outlaws and stuff like that. Since they've effectively been living on their own and under constant threat of attack, there was also this idea that like, how would the city need to be modified to protect? Because basically at a moment's notice, like Vandal could kind of just roll into the system, start churning up some resources and leave, and you don't want to let them know that you're there because they don't tend to look kindly on squatters. So it's the question is like started these discussions of like do buildings kind of like seal up, or do they have these sort of things that make them look abandoned and stuff like that? These are things that are kind of still getting discussed, and we'll see what we can kind of get away with. And again, it's probably important to reiterate that these initial system write-ups have been around for a while. So once the team starts to focus on Orion, for active development, things might expand or shift slightly, but the important thing to remember is that the flavor of it, the character of the system will be the same. So even though the specifics might be a little bit more fluid, this is the kind of the hook, if you call it that, into the system itself. So yeah, that's it for Orion. Thank you all for hearing me ramble. Big thank you goes out to the subscribers, of course, for allowing us to do this added content. As always, I recommend that you wander around the star map if you like seeing the various systems of the Star Citizen universe and get a sense of that sort of flavor of the worlds and the landing zones and stuff like that. And it's just, it's pretty as hell, so it's just cool to kind of, wander around in. The star map, of course, is accessible via the Star Citizen tab on the top of the homepage. So if you're having difficulty finding it, that's where it is. But yeah, my name's Dave Haddock. This has been Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.